This is Andrea from Better Gut, Better Mind. Finally ready to show some of my Strategene report and what I've learned from it. It's kind of some highlights. So one of the first pages is this, shows the Super 7 from the Dirty Genes book. So if you're not familiar with that, I highly recommend reading that book. And how these genes relate to each other. So one of the things that I noted here is in the glutathione pathway, this is something that can be severely affected by mold. So even if you were not born with dirty genes here, my pathway is really not that bad for glutathione. If there's mold, then that can dirty also the NOS3, which is already born dirty, so that would make it worse. And that also would impact SAM and SA production, SAH, and those would impact pretty much a lot of other things. So anyway, the idea is here to look at the whole picture, which is not really, not the whole picture of your body, obviously, but look at the big picture, not just individual things, and see kind of how they affect each other. Here is the key. So the purple ones are slow, yellow is intermediate, orange is fast, this mixed one is complicated, and the other ones, you may not necessarily have additional, it may not show whether it's fast or slow, it could be normal, but there's important information available. So of most interest to me were my histamine and dopamine pathways. I'm going to start with the histamine because that one is one that is talked a lot about in the community of those with food allergies. So with my histamine pathway, I would have naturally assumed that I have a dirty DAO or HNMT, a born dirty DAO or HNMT, but it turns out that that's not the case. So my issues are primarily coming from these aldehyde genes. And I'm gonna just let me go further into one of those and then explain. But basically, this aldehyde issue creates this pool right above here of this acetaldehyde, and that is what is inhibiting the DAO. And in this case, if things pool here, things pool further upstream, and there's feedback inhibition there too. All right, so let me go down to here and explain why this is a big problem. My functional practitioner explained that with a lot of the genes, when they're slow, they're like 10 to 20% slow. But this one in particular is much worse. I did some research and it said this, my particular SNP is 96% slower. So function is reduced by 96%. That's a really big deal, especially because the products that it's trying to break down are very toxic. So I already knew that I have high sensitivity to cigarette smoke, formaldehyde, disinfectants, perfumes, just chemicals in general. And this is why. I didn't know why, but now I know why. There are some things in here also that I would not necessarily have thought of before, such as if you have candida, they generate acetaldehyde, and so then that further adds to the burden in the body. This is very important because the gene is already having a lot of trouble working through the byproducts that are produced in your body, and so to add to that would make things much worse, obviously. So this gene does not just affect the histamine pathway. So we're going to look at my dopamine pathway, which is where most of my issues are coming from. So in my dopamine pathway, most of my symptoms are of low dopamine, and so you would think that something is slow up here. That is not the case. So what this is showing is that I don't really have much of a problem with producing the dopamine, So I could have plenty of dopamine. However, notice purple, purple, purple. So the dopamine's having trouble finding somewhere to go. So it's not being transported efficiently to receptors. It's not getting converted to norepinephrine very well. And then major issue here that it goes through this MAOA, that's the major pathway, and you get this dopal. That is an aldehyde. And then it can't be processed very efficiently through here. So this is very, very toxic. It actually kills neurons and can cause some serious problems. Think things like, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, things like that. And what's very interesting is that this could be the case with a lot of people, but a lot of these drugs that are for those type of illnesses are made to increase dopamine. Well, what would happen in my case if I were to increase dopamine? All I would be doing is increasing the pool to create additional toxins in my body. So we could think of this in such a way that when the body produces this and it's killing off those dopaminergic areas, I forget exactly what they're called. I don't know if they are neurons, but basically it's trying to stop more production of this. And so taking a drug to increase the dopamine would only exacerbate this problem. So really in a situation like that, what would need to be opened up is this gene right here. So in my case, it has been very helpful. You'll notice here in green, those are the cofactors. So those are necessary in order for this to work. B1 and B3 supplementation has been helpful for me. Also, I have never done well with NSAIDs, and this explains why. I have also noticed a problem with the oxidized fatty acids lately, so that explains that too. Also in the past, I had tried SSRIs, though none of those worked. A couple of the SNRIs did work, and now it makes sense why they did, because my problem, and my serotonin pathway is not bad. The problem is here, the low norepinephrine. So that's why those helped somewhat, but I had too many side effects, so I couldn't continue. But that's definitely the problem here too. Once things make it to here, and then you go down this major pathway to the MAOA, you wind up with dopagal. Guess what? That is another toxin. And that also gets stuck because, again, it's got to go through the aldehyde genes. So that is the biggest issue in my case. The idea is to clear things from the bottom up. So think of there's often the illustration of draining the tub. So you got to start from the bottom, let things drain out before you start trying to improve things further upstream. So so that's the direction that we're taking, and hoping that will significantly improve things upstream. So anyway, those were the two that have the most, seem to have the most, create the most symptoms for me. So that's where I'm starting, and then going from there. So I'll keep y'all updated. But one other thing that I want to mention about this is that it was very cost effective to do. I think I paid like $40 for the Ancestry DNA, and it was about $95, I think, for the Strategene report. So about $135. And this is something that does not change. So you get blood work, you need to get blood work again, every few months or so. This will remain the same, and you can always refer back to it. So to me, it was well worth it to do. Anyway, that's all for now, and I hope that you found this useful.